Hello everyone, Dan Swift here, founder and CEO at Numentum, and welcome to the Speaker Series, where we spotlight some of the most interesting minds in the world of revenue generation. At Numentum, we help forward-thinking B2B organizations create better buyer experiences and deliver new momentum to their revenue engine. On this episode of the Speaker Series, we speak with Dean Curtis, Managing Director of Risk and Analytics at RELX. We have a great conversation around the connection between business and sport, the value of performance over results, and the importance of belief. Dean, welcome to the Speaker Series.
Thank you for having me, Dan. Great introduction.
Well, thank you very much. Now, Dean, we've known each other now for what, more than 20 years?
We have indeed, yes.
I'm going to have some fun with this.
Yeah. I'm slightly nervous now.
Well, we'll take you back. We'll take you back 20 years momentarily, but why don't we kick it off? Why don't you introduce yourself in terms of a little bit about the RELX organization and a little bit about your role and responsibilities there?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as Dan just said, Group Managing Director at LexisNexis Risk Solutions. We are one of four divisions of RELX Group, a FTSE 20 company, and a global provider of information-based analytics and decision tools for professional and business customers. I've been in the business since January 2014. And where we worked together, Dan, in the past around risk and risk technology many moons ago. The two businesses that I look after at the moment are in energy and petrochemicals and also aviation, so using data and decision tools in those industries.
Fantastic. Now, we're going to bring you back there momentarily. However, I'm taking you back in time now, 20 plus years. So careers are like seldom linear, right? And I want to dig into your career experience. So let's go way back. What was your first, that you consider your first job? Let's start there.
Wow, I've had many first jobs. I will touch on my first proper job, but my first job when I was growing up, I had a few actually. My parents were pretty keen on me working hard. So I remember I had three jobs in one go. I used to I had a paper round. I used to cut grass, and I also used to work at the local fishing shop and held the high privilege of sieving the maggots and the bait. But that was when I was about 14, so I started as high as I possibly could.
Awesome, starting in the workforce early. So what did you learn from fishing out those maggots, Dean? No, just kidding. No, let's keep moving. So after you're 14, right, you move into the world of work. Now, I know you had a sports career, right?
Yeah, kind of that came about. So I played a lot of football or soccer when I was at school and young, and that went quite well. And then as I was finishing school, it was evident that wasn't going to happen. I'd had a whole variety of different injuries and other, that put pay to that. And my dad was a football coach as well, soccer, depending on which side of the Atlantic you sit. I was then applying for university, and someone I used to play football with, and I often help a lot of young people with their careers because I got this sort of help. This chap kind of met me and was telling me about his life in the city of London, and I wrote off literally 10 letters to banks, got some response, had some interviews, and I ended up getting offered 3 jobs, rather surprisingly. And one of those jobs wasn't the best paid or anything like that, but was an A-level leaver apprenticeship scheme at Rothschild's. And so I spent my first year of my career going round Rothschild's bank and working in all of the different departments, which was just a phenomenal experience for me. I was doing my UCAS applications, and I'm still not sure what made me make the decisions that I made, but they came out quite well. And what that meant is, and I ended up settling in their asset management business. And I knew a financial services business because I'd worked in treasury and private clients and asset management, and better than most people that had worked in banks a number of years just in one department. So it was an unbelievable foundation, particularly in the UK, as as you know, and you were here there, Dan, in terms of, you know, the impact that has on the UK GDP and its place in the global banking world. So it turned out kind of by accident to be a pretty wonderful start for me. And then bizarrely, I wanted to get into being a fund manager and make investment decisions. And despite being taken on as an A-level leaver, the rules in the business at the time at Rothschilds were you needed a degree.
Right.
So I then moved to HSBC Investment Management, where I was able to do that and make investment decisions on behalf of high net worth private individuals and small charities. And I got into that. And rather weirdly, that's when I really got into the studying of communication and sales in particular, because I found trading a little bit boring, in all honesty. And you know, kind of buy a bit of something and sell a bit of something else, and you're behind screens. But part of the job was to go out and win new customers. We advertised in the Financial Times and a lot of the newspapers, and it was going out and really working people out and having that emotional contact was the best bit of the job for me. And that's where I really got into kind of client-facing commercial roles as a passion rather than just being a trader. And then at the same time, that collided with a huge increase in regulation and the importance of risk and compliance in that particular industry. So there was a bit of a departing of fund managers. There was about 80-something fund managers, and most of them left based on the move to model portfolios, all of that sort of stuff. So I ended up traveling a little bit and doing some football coaching in Australia and California, and I took my UEFA licenses. And on my final one, there was somebody there from Tottenham Hotspur in the Premier League, and they said, "Oh, why don't you come along to the club?" So I ended up working there for a while. I worked at a couple of other Premier League clubs at the time, Norwich City and Charlton. One was just very short term, but it was probably my best experience because I worked with the first team players there for a short period, which was a wonderful experience. Yeah. And then I kind of realized even that it sounds all very glamorous, but football is a very short-term thing. The average tenure of an English Premier League manager is less than 2 years. Right. And if you get into that age where you're starting to think about settling down and family, moving around and kids. And so I ended up going back to Investec Bank in their private client business for a while, which went really well, again in a sales role, selling investments to financial advisors. And not long after that, I got interviewed. A headhunter said to me, "Go down to this startup in Putney. I know it's a bit off the beaten track, but you'll love it. This business does compliance and it's all online." And I got interviewed by this rather energetic young chap called Dan Swift, and ended up joining the business. And from there, I've been in the B2B information world. So I guess I owe you a bit of thanks. And I'm not just being nice. So you take the next 25 minutes to be easy on me, but.
Love it. You've just taken me back there. I do remember the day when you walked in as well. Wow, I haven't thought of that in a long time. That's really cool. Before I take you down the fun path of questions that I'm going to ask you as well, I want to ask you about the correlation between anything you learn in the world of sport and what you see day to day in the world of business. Is there anything like lessons or things that you saw, anything you brought across into the business world?
Honestly, most of it, right? I genuinely mean that. I take much more from that area of my life. And even when I was working in banking and stuff, I was always in semi-professional football or large majority of my approach is taken from sport. And there's a few things in particular, right? And it directly relates to careers as well. Is that the first thing is the importance of performance over results. As a soccer coach, if you went into a dressing room or locker room and you sort of say you need to win, it's unhelpful information, right? But yet in business, it's okay to say, here's your target, don't miss it. Right. And it's the build-up of all of those small performance elements that gets the result. So performance is doing the things you need to do to get the results you want. And if you focus on performance, then your potential has more chance of coming. The best manager, Alex Ferguson in Man United, never say you need to win 38 games in a season. If we win 33, we're champions. It's a long-term result. And if you can apply that in the business world, where you do get longer, in football, you lose 4 games is 2 weeks, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
In business, you get 3 or 4 quarters often to sort things out. There's a longer term view, which should relate to performance more. Yeah. So that's the first thing. The second thing is around teams. And in business, because people are a little bit more selfish, really, weirdly, even than elite sports people, because you think of yourself in a game of sport, your rugby, you know, if you're in a dressing room with 14 other guys, and whether you like them or not, in 80 minutes, you're conditioned to all win or all lose. In business, you sit around boardrooms and you think, well, they're a bit rubbish. They'll be gone in a year. And it's not helpful. Business is fast paced now. It's agile. And performance is important. That differentiation is harder to get more than ever, as it is in sport now, which is sometimes tiny bits of a second. So the ability to create mutual accountability and true psychological safety is what makes the best teams the best, right? And that culture and environment. And that's the hardest thing for any leader to create, is where do people truly trust each other, where they're willing to help each other. And in business, that doesn't happen very often, right? If sales is in a particular place and marketing's failing, there's finger pointing. In sport, if your teammate's losing out a little bit, you do something to help them. And that doesn't happen very often in the business world. And I think that what we're seeing, particularly in the push for proper, diverse and inclusive environments, that element of mutual accountability and psychological safety that brings people together is really important. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? There's an element of, first of all, you've got to be driven by the same purpose. And then below that, there's, well, what's the role clarity and connectedness between us? What do I need of you, Dan? And Dan, what do you need of me? And it's not just assuming, it's really taking time to play it out and over communicate. And often with the pace of business, a lot of that doesn't happen. And I think that when you get individuals performing well and you get those individuals connected together by that purpose and begin to become a true team where they care about the whole more than they care about themselves, and realize if the business begins to succeed, it creates personal opportunity for everybody. That's when ultimately performance and results begins to get better.
I love it. I love it. Now, clearly you're passionate about all aspects of business, but there's some things that I know about you that maybe you're more passionate about than others. So let's talk about that. What drives you?
Oh, wow. That's the thing that drives me now in a leadership role is getting people to perform to or above their potential. You know, that's what gives me the biggest hit. And I think that people probably be listening to this in different stages of their career, and that hasn't always driven me, right? When I was younger, it might have been about being the best salesperson or earning money or whatever it is. But you know, I judge myself and how good I am at my job based on the development of people in the organizations I have the privilege of leading, really. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning, is getting people to realize their potential.
We're going to have lots of different people listening at different stages in their career. And you're right, you said it. A lot of people earlier on in their career think, particularly when it comes to sales, that the natural progression is into a management or a leadership role. But it's not for everyone. So what guidance would you give to a lot of first-line managers who are going to be listening to this? What advice or guidance would you give them in that first leadership role?
Oh, wow. It's to realize how different the role is. And I don't think anybody realizes when I don't think I know anybody that's realized how different it is when they get given that opportunity, right? You know, you've gone from just in that one decision being totally responsible, accountable, and in control of your own results, where you have to deliver, to fundamentally delivering results through other people.
Right.
And that's probably the biggest change anybody can make, right? And I see a lot of good managers that go wrong because they try and do it for the person. And I see others that kind of struggle to make that adaptation. And I think it's taken the time at that beginning to step back and think, well, what good and bad leaders have I ever had? And what was good about them and what was bad about them? And the advice I always give first-time managers is be the leader that you always wanted.
Right. It's funny. I do exactly the same. I was asked the same question myself, and I do look back at the leaders I've had over the years, and you learn a lot from the negative experiences as well, right? And what would you do in those situations yourself? How would you have liked to have been treated? How would you have liked to have been spoken to? So yeah, I hear you, man. Now the flip side of passions, though, right, are those frustrations or those things that just cause friction for you as a human being. So what's a non-starter for you when it comes to business, when it comes to personal, the way that people interact with each other? Like, what's just a non-starter for you? What frustrates you?
Well, there's a couple of really standout ones, and I don't tend to give them away too much, but hopefully they become obvious when people work with me. The first is around that kind of passion and purpose, right? Is as you get older, my career's flown by, and time is short, and you've got to believe in what you do.
Yeah.
And spend your time like that, and people, I'll just wait for this and see what happens. And to be honest, you're not doing yourself any favors, and you're not doing the organization you work for any favors. And I always say that to salespeople, right? If you don't believe in what you do, it shows.
Yeah.
You know, I love salespeople, even if their products are not particularly wonderful. If they walk in the door and their eyes are shining and they believe in the company they represent, it's infectious.
Yeah.
And you can't buy that. You can't train it. You have to believe in what you do. And I don't know if you ever heard it, as a famous kind of piece that I use a lot around the African shoe salesman. I don't know if you ever heard that.
No, go on. I want to hear this. Yep.
There's two African shoe salesmen. There's a business in Manchester that's looking at how do we expand our markets, and they send two salespeople to Africa. This is back in the early 1900s to scope out the market for shoe sales, and it's about perspective and belief, really. And the first one gets there and walks around and all the rest of it is feeling really deflated, sends a telegram home and sort of says, traveled all this way, really down. The opportunity is tough because they don't wear shoes here. I'll be on the next boat back. The second one is exploring around and sends a telegram back, says, you're never going to believe this. So I've just found this place. No people wear shoes. The opportunity is rife.
Right, there you go.
And it's that sums life and business up for me, is you've got to believe in what you do, because it doesn't matter how good you are. There are always those days where you wake up and you struggle with a level of motivation. I like to feel of myself as motivated. Of course, we all have bad days.
Yeah.
And if you really believe in what you're doing, that's the difference to keep you kicking on.
Yeah.
And so passion and belief are fundamentals. And I even say to people in town halls, if you don't believe in what you're doing here, don't be here. Life is short. Do something that you want to be doing. I think that's fundamentally important to everybody. And the second, honestly, is hard work.
Yeah.
And I know we're in an environment that's pretty tough at the moment, and people are having, but hard work works. I'm not by a long way, quite the reverse, the smartest person, right? But I never get outworked. It's something I can control.
Yeah.
And even just silly things like, if I think about my life, particularly in sales over the last 25 years, probably work an hour or two more every day, 2 hours a day in working days. That's 74 extra days a year. That's a third extra experience than I've got someone my own age. Yeah. 25 times that. Right. Which I think, and of course, it's not just about hard work and sitting at a desk. You have to be productive in that. That's not what I'm saying. And I know that in particularly the COVID environment and post-COVID, balance is important. But hard work is important, right? If you look at the best people in anything, they make a lot of sacrifices in their life. And my most important role in my life is being a father, right? But if I was taking my kids to a club on a Saturday morning and in my head in the car, I'm not playing back, well, how was the week? Right. Am I really bought in to what I'm doing? Right. And I don't really want to, I spent a long time looking at balance, and I don't want to apologize for myself for that, because if I could just switch off at 5 p.m. on a Friday, how much would my work need to be?
This has been an interesting, challenging 18 months, right? And you all as a business were so forward thinking in terms of bringing, let's pivot to Empire, bringing digital into the organization. And it wasn't like you weren't, but you wanted to bring a prescriptive process into your go-to-market. Now you got ahead of this. We've been working together for nearly 2 years between the two businesses, but a lot of companies waited until the situation happened with COVID and the pandemic, and then you've got a whole army of people working from home, and they've got to pivot. They can't walk the floors of their customers anymore. So you all as a business were very forward thinking. So talk to us a little bit about the experience with Empire. I don't know whether you can give us one big learning or whether there's been a few, but talk to us about what you've seen between the two parties.
Yeah, I guess the way people buy had changed significantly over the last 10 years anyway, right? And it continues to do so. So we at Risk began working with Empire in the latter half of mid to late 2019, so before the pandemic, which was a bit of a blessing. But everything that we see now was happening anyway, I believe, in sales anyway. And what this has done is just accelerate that. I still think face-to-face will always be important, and the person that can build the relationship and is sat across the table and makes the effort has historically always been the one that stands the best chance of winning the business. And that doesn't necessarily lessen anything to do with that kind of social selling proposition. In fact, quite the reverse. So first of all, I think any sales technique or methodology kind of does itself a disservice in some ways by having the word sales in it, because it's a business methodology. So the business has to go together. So whilst we started with sales, the other functions in our business now, our editorial team, our product team, our analytics team have essentially been trained and gone through the program. And it's important that the business represents itself in that consistent manner. So I think that it's a business methodology, not a sales methodology. And I think that's the same of any methodology in terms of go-to-market. I guess the other part to that is how it brings it together. It's not a course, it's not an event, it's not episodial. It becomes a series of behaviors that get embedded. And that's, for me, what you guys at Empire do really well, is you don't just drop a methodology off and run and you see whether it sticks. It's how do we embed this over a long period of time where it becomes a habit and a behavior. And that's important, true of all of us in performance of life, right? We have helpful things in our life and behaviors and habits, and we have unhelpful things. And the more that we dial up those helpful things, the better it gets. So, what we've seen is it's allowed us to be consistent as an organization, but it's also allowed the personality of our business and the individuals to come out, where it doesn't need to be this polished thing. It needs to be human. And I think that it's had a massive impact on our business. So thank you to you and your team, honestly. And I'm not just saying that because of this podcast. I genuinely think it has further differentiated us in the markets in which we operate.
Love it. Well, your people have been so open to learning. I think that's testament to the entire leadership team. But when you try and change behaviors, people have to step out of their comfort zone, and you all have done a phenomenal job at it. So it's exciting. All right, my friend. Well, I said I'll have a little bit of fun with you. So quick fire round. Are you ready, sir?
Yeah, I'm worried now.
Don't you worry, I'll be nice. All right, here we go. Mr. Dean Curtis, your quick fire round. Question number 1. All right, who is your hero?
So this is not going to be very quick because I haven't really got one. I've got many, and I genuinely think there's a lot you can take from everybody you meet. Okay. And I have certain people that I value and respect, and I don't ever try and model myself on one person. The best answer I've ever seen for that I try to adopt myself now is Matthew McConaughey's, and my hero is going to be me in 10 years' time, where I can take those learnings and become my own hero. Of course, I never become me in 10 years' time, so I'll never quite get there. But I think my one saying in life actually is you become the people you touch. Yeah, man. That's my big, and I am, the one thing I'm really conscious of is surrounding myself with good people, and I stand on the shoulders of many, many good people in the organization and outside, like yourself and others. And I love being around people that inspire me. So if I stick to my hero being me in 10 years' time, I'll be in a good place, maybe.
Love it. Best sales kickoff you've ever been to in your 25 years, and why?
Oh, wow. It's been some really good ones and some really bad ones, and there's been some that that fly by, and others have been a total waste of 3 days. They do a nice job of it here at Risk more widely, right? Yeah. We bring a lot of salespeople together. And my first one is when I really recognised the scale of the organisation that I joined. There was one in particular, 2 or 3 years in, where the sales leadership, and it was part of one of my organizations, actually. Steve Arneson led it as a sales director. I did a kind of murder mystery almost, where it was about questioning skills, and different hotel rooms were blocked off and you had to work out who did what, and it was all around sales questioning. And it was absolutely phenomenal. And it was great to see the team respond so well to something that took you kind of out of your day-to-day work, but the skills were so relevant. We had a lot of fun, and I think the team developed a lot.
Nice. Morning lark or night owl? Easy
one. Morning lark for me.
What time are you up in the morning?
I'm a member of the 5 a.m. club quite often, unfortunately. As Mr. Robin Sharma says, most of the saints and great people of the world got up and saw the energy and got the energy from the sun rising. I am one of those people. Get a workout in and get a lot done. And as the evening goes on, I tend to, my energy levels tend to drop a little. So,
love it. Yeah. Last Halloween costume.
Oh my word.
I told you I was going to take you some weird directions here, Dean.
That is totally off the cuff. Do you know what? I actually think it was a pumpkin. I'd like to say it was something really cool, like a movie character, but it wasn't, if I'm honest.
Nah, you got three kids. We'll go with pumpkin. It's fine. Favorite city in the world?
London.
City or country you'd most like to visit that you haven't visited yet?
I'd love to go to the Galapagos.
Yeah, ditto. All right, we're going to do a trip. What brings you joy?
My family and my kids.
All right. How many cups of coffee a day?
Too many. I'm on 4 or 5 today now. It's 5 p.m. here in the UK, so too many. I go through spells where I cut it out, or I try and limit myself to 1 or 2 a day, but I do love my coffee.
You touched on it earlier in this conversation, but your favorite manager ever and why?
Oh, wow. As again, I think that there's so many that I've got different things for, right? And there is a few. It's tough to name, kind of 1 or 2. I've been fortunate enough genuinely to meet and work for proper brilliant people that have done some amazing things. And if I go through Rod Juniper, who's not with us anymore at HSBC, he taught me never expect anybody to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. He'd come out of his office and do everything with you, order pizza in, till midnight. He was a great guy. Chris Pilling, who we worked both for at Componet, hugely passionate, innovative, future thinking. Every time you spoke to him, you felt 1,000-foot tall. Neil Sternful at Thomson Reuters, unbelievable guy, a lawyer by trade, sales leader, and overall business leader, probably one of the most articulate, off-the-cuff people I've ever met. And my current boss, Mark Kelsey, runs a $3 billion business and is probably one of the best executives I've ever seen. So I've been very fortunate there. But then I do take a job with that in mind, is who I work for is really, really important to me. And I have been blessed.
Good, man. One more question for you, because we're going to have a lot of people listening to this who are early on in their careers, if not about to embark on their career. What would you tell your younger self that they might benefit from?
There's 2 things. The first is, and it goes back to where I started, the difference between performance and results. Performance is doing the things you need to do to get the results you want. Don't judge your career on results and outcomes. How much revenue do I manage? How big are the accounts? How big's my target? How much am I earning? How many positions am I away from the CEO? They're all outcomes. And twice, the predominant factor for me taking a job has been an outcome, and at both times it's ended terribly. And it's taken me 2, 3, 4 years to recover from those outcomes. Focus on performance. Know where you want to go, but think about the things you need to do to get there, and put you in a position and surround yourself with people to get there. And that would be my biggest thing, because the outcomes come.
Yeah.
The second thing, which is probably just as important, is trust yourself. When I was younger, you spend a lot of time trying to be what you think the business, others, and the world wants you to be. And as you begin to get more comfortable, I wish that I've trusted myself more and been more confident in who I was. So be the best version of you and be confident in that. And then you kind of get back what you give out, and don't waste too much energy trying to change to the environments that you're in, because it is wasted energy just thinking and trying to second guess what other people want from you. And it's a great way to be unhappy.
Yeah. Dean, I want to thank you, man. This was fantastic. Thank you. Thanks for just taking the time. And I always say it before one of these, we want to see the human side of the people who are at the pinnacles in their career. And I think we've learned a ton. So Dean, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan. It's been my pleasure. Good to see you again.